Hi guys, welcome back to the Nancy Boyce channel and my wrap up of the 51 new horror movies I saw in 2025. I'll get into this in the main part of the video, but I think it's been a bit of a mixed year, some pretty high highs and some very, very low lows and quite a lot of kind of average in the middle. So we'll go through that in more detail shortly. Now, a quick confession, this is my second attempt at filming this intro. I had some issues with my camera, so I lost a chunk of what I filmed. So, and I'm also really sick now as well, as you can hear in my voice. So you will get me a little bit less croaky in about 30 seconds time. Another thing that I completely forgot and I realised the other day walking to the bathroom after I finished editing most part of the video was I'd completely forgotten to include Sinners in the roundup. I did see it and I loved it. And I think it's one of those modern classics that's going to live in my top tier. So it's even more annoying that I didn't include it. And if people don't see this intro, then they're not going to know why. But I did see Sinners. It was great. And it will and should be included in future rankings and things like that. So apologies for missing out. Otherwise, let's crack on with the ranking. So let's just quickly go through my categories. They're exactly the same as last year. So as you've seen my 2024 wrap up, I'm going to try and keep these quite consistent year on year. So we're kind of comparing apples with oranges. That doesn't make sense, does it? Apples with apples. I don't know. Anyway, top of the list is modern classics. So those are the films that I think will outlast 2025 and they're kind of the zeitgeist we're in. And they're films that we're going to be talking about 5 to 10 years from now as proper horror classics. Not just, best of a bad bunch and all those kinds of things, the ones that will stick through. Solid horror, just really good horror movies, not ones that particularly will, rival those kind of classics, but ones that just absolutely delivered and were really fun to watch. We then go with One and Done. These are ones that were fine, they're okay, they're not ones that I would ever probably go back to. That could either be because they were just average, might be because the viewing experience actually was kind of a bit of a drag, and therefore not something I would want to go and revisit. Meh, I think, is probably the worst category for me as a reviewer, because meh movies just haven't really got a lot to say. They just pass me by and they don't really say a lot, and I haven't got any much kind of energy or passion to talk about it from a good or bad perspective. And then worst of the year, probably my most fun, because I kind of love to hate a bad movie. But worst of the year is obviously, that's what it says. It's that crop of movies that I particularly did not enjoy. And there's quite a few of those, I believe, this year. So without further ado, let's crack on. And I'm going to start with The Toxic Avenger, which came out, I believe, over the summer. It was a very weird limited release. I didn't get a chance to see it, and I got a review copy on DVD and watched that a couple of weeks ago. And that's firmly going into one and done. That's a nice, easy one for me. It was totally fine. It was colourful. It was kind of okay. It was really fun to see Julia Davis in a movie. I'm a big fan of hers. But the film itself, I thought, was fine. It had some interesting kills. It was quite visually interesting, but it's just not one I would probably ever go back to. I thought it was all right. I've never seen the original, so I don't have that comparison. I don't know whether the original is something to bother with, but let's just throw that in there to get us all started. And then we're going to move to Good Boy. And Good Boy, I am also going to throw that into One and Done. And I know this was quite popular online. I've seen a lot of people put this in their top 10. I just feel this film could have been half an hour, probably shorter. Like, it was just too long for me. And I get the skill and the artistry behind Indy the dog. This film is about a dog experiencing kind of what a final girl would normally experience in a horror movie. It's about a dog instead. And I think there's a great craftsmanship in getting that dog to react to things. And there's a lot of really good work that got into it. But I just didn't find it particularly interesting in terms of making me wait an hour and a half to get to the end. So if that had been probably more of a half an hour short, I think it would have been way better. Indy the dog is awesome. I think he's a great little actor for what he did. But it's not one I would ever want to go back to. I found it kind of a bit of a slog to get through. Night of the Reaper is next, and this is a really funny one because I remember looking at my Letterboxd record to see which films needed to go on this list, and I can almost barely remember seeing this film. So I think on that respect, I'm going to have to throw it into meh. I remember that it had an actress from Final Destination 2 in it, and it had some sort of local murder angle, a little bit When a Stranger Calls kind of feel to it. But that's pretty much all I remember. And I remember it being kind of, it feels like a Shudder original. I think it was. And I threw it on a Friday night, and who knows? I can't remember much about it. Bone Lake I thought was good fun, but I think having watched it once, it's again not something I would need to revisit. I thought it was all right. It had some kind of good little violent moments at the end. I think it took a long time to get there, I thought the dynamics were quite interesting between the two couples, but ultimately, I think once you've seen it, you know, you don't need to go back to it. Is my personal view, and I wasn't a big fan of the kind of the sort of the twist ending, if that's what you want to call it. But hey, it was all right, and it was certainly watchable. God, we're being a bit of a trend here. I'm going to go with Restless. Restless is a one and done for me. I thought Restless was a real shame, and there's a few on this list that are debatably horror. Restless is about a woman who has some people move in next door to her house, and they play loud music into the night, and they're really antisocial. They let their dog use her lawn as a toilet, and it escalates from there. And I think just when you start to think, oh, this is potentially going somewhere, it kind of veers off in a really weird sort of comedy direction. And it does that a few times. There's a little bit too much comedy, whereas if they played it straight down the line, I think it actually would have been a lot more interesting. But that's Restless. I don't know if I'd recommend it. I think it was again kind of an interesting watch. It's a British sort of horror drama. So if you want to check it out, it is a bit different from what you normally would see. We then move on to Locked. Locked was a very frustrating film. I debate putting it in one and done or meh. I'm going to go with meh. I just don't understand why Anthony Hopkins and Bill Skarsgård agreed to be in this. I thought the script was really weak. It's very like direct-to-DVD type concept. It's a concept movie of, let's see what happens if there's a kind of evil genius suffering with cancer, which is basically just Saw. It's just Saw in a car, and then this thief breaks into the car, and the car is thief-proof and won't let him out. Bill Skarsgård's character, and this is just such a total moron. He just keeps doing the same stuff over and over again. Anthony Hopkins' character keeps telling him to stop swearing and to stop trying to get out of the car, and he keeps electrocuting him, and it never stops. He just does it all the way through. And it just left me feeling like, wow, were those guys just in this for the paycheck? I just don't really get who it was for. I thought it was pretty bad. The Home, that's Pete Davidson's horror movie. That is also going in one and done. Sorry guys, you're probably sensing a thread here. It will pick up, I promise, because there was some really good stuff this year. The Home, again, I just don't remember it that much. I threw it on late at night. I thought it had some effective moments, but I don't know. Pete Davidson's not exactly I wouldn't say like particularly charismatic lead, and I don't know. It had maybe an interesting ending, and it had I did actually really enjoy the last 10-15 minutes. It has this whole kind of revenge storyline that plays out in quite a fun way. So I'll give them that. But again, this isn't going to be one that's going to be popping up on any best or worst of lists. I think it's just going to sit there firmly in the middle. Finally, we get to something that I actually enjoyed a lot more, and that is Predator: Badlands. And that's going to go for me up in solid horror. This was a total surprise. I'm a massive fan of the original Predator. That film for me was, as a kid, pretty terrifying and so graphic. I mean, I watched that when I was probably about 8 years old. My mum didn't know, so sorry, mum. But this just was a complete swerve. Like it was fun. It made the Predator sort of the hero, which was a bit different. And it almost had a bit of a Guardians of the Galaxy feel to it. And I get it. Like some people were really not happy that that's what they've done with Predator. My view is there's so many kinds of Predator movie now. The franchise has never been hugely consistent. Like Prey, which comes before this, was set way in the past. And did something completely different. So I'm all right with it. Like there's no real thread of continuity to it anyway. So we may as well just try something else. So I thought this was actually pretty fun. And it's not the sort of film that would be for me. I don't like sci-fi. And the first 20 minutes I was thinking, what have I done? I just don't think this is going to be great. And actually it turned out to be all right. So I was pleasantly surprised, and that was a good, fun, solid watch for the year. I Know What You Did Last Summer, the remake. Oh, this is really hard because you guys are going to just think, what are you doing? I can't put it in solid horror because I just know it's not. I will say that I really enjoyed this far more than I should have done. I would say I probably enjoyed it more than all these other films. So I'm going to put it right at the end here, if I can get it there. I get it. It's not a good film. We know that. But I don't know whether as a gay man I just had more fun with the sensibility of it. I found the characters quite funny. Like I found the sort of Gabriette cameo kind of fun. I loved like the character reveals. The Sarah Michelle Gellar bit was just probably one of the most fun times I've had in the cinema. And And I was with my boyfriend who hadn't seen the original, and I was just there like, she's actually in it, because I don't remember that being spoiled before it came out. I knew that Jennifer Love Hewitt, Freddie Prinze Jr. would be in it. I didn't know that she had a cameo, and I didn't know that Brandy had a cameo. So I was bloody delighted. I really had fun with it. I know, again, that it's not a good film. I completely agree. The twist ending was probably nonsense. And the writing is probably really annoying. And there's a load of faults with it. But I kind of enjoyed it. And it's annoying because I was going to do this big retrospective on all of the original films, because I don't actually think the first one is that good. I think it's got a lot of 90s nostalgia, but it's pretty weak as a film. So, I don't know that this one was particularly worse than that. I probably actually enjoyed it a bit more. I enjoyed the original. Anyway, I should start making excuses for it. This is my view. But yeah, I know there'll be a lot of people screaming at me for that one. Drop was all right. I mean, Drop, I would say, is probably a one and done for me. I'm just going to pop mine just up here. Again, I think because of the concept of Drop, like the whole thing hinges on like maybe the unknown, and sort of there's a few puzzle elements to it. So to be honest, once you know what the kind of ending is, I don't think it's got a massive repeat value, but it was interesting. It was quite cool the way it was filmed. The only argument a friend of mine had was that the son was really annoying, and the motivation is to save her son. And he was this kind of annoying child actor that we didn't really like. So actually, we weren't that fussed. And I mean, this hovers between meh and one and done. I don't know. I'm gonna put it. Where am I gonna put this? Oh, I don't know. I mean, maybe it goes there. I just thought this film was really average, and I know that The Devil Made Me Do It was pretty bad, and I don't know whether that made people kind of be more charitable with this one because it went back to traditional haunting, but it was an odd film. It was almost like a familial drama. Like there was barely any real scares in it, and what I found frustrating was they had this case of the Smells, this Philadelphia-based family, but they just didn't really spend much time on it. And what they did spend was just completely inaccurate to what actually happened. And I've read up about that case. There are things that happened that would have been interesting to show, but they went so bombastic with it. And there's this ridiculous scene with a spinning mirror that it just completely took me out of it. I thought it was kind of funny. And I don't know, I think there's this whole thing with the Warrens. They are slightly problematic as cast members. And yeah, it was clearly such a big setup for the upcoming TV show. And they just focused a lot on the daughter character. And I just thought it was a little bit cliched. It was very Blumhouse. And I was surprised that it got as charitable reviews as it did, because I thought it was pretty average. But anyway, I think, yeah, it firmly sits as like a 5 out of 10, middle of the pack there. Oh, The Shrouds. So I saw The Shrouds in a cinema mid-August. It was boiling hot. It was a hot day, and I thought, oh, I'll be kind of cool and classy, and I'll go to a little art house cinema local to me and see this obscure David Cronenberg film. David Cronenberg is not my favourite director. I love The Fly. I really like The Brood, but he's never been my kind of director. Like he's not one that I would, desperately need to go and like watch all his films and see how he's doing. My God, this one was such a slog, and I really, I was really trying to keep up with it. I think I made a comment on my Instagram of I'm just not clever enough for this film, and someone just wrote back and said, no, the film was just boring. I just thought it was kind of hard work. So it was well done, and maybe the performances were interesting. It had some interesting ideas, like the whole concept of what The Shrouds is, I thought was such a cool idea for a film. But ultimately, my God, was this a slog? It was really, really quite hard to get through. So I'm going to throw that in meh. I think it's way better produced than like The Reaper and Locked. But yeah, nothing particularly interesting there. And here we go. Just to prove that I do love horror, and we do have one of our first modern classics on the list, and this is Weapons. I'm not going to go too much into it. There was a review on this. I didn't actually do that many video reviews last year, but this was one where I was actually in my car because I just needed to talk about it. I thought it was so well done. One of the few films I had to take my boyfriend Chris to go and see afterwards because I just thought I need to see how you react to it. It had a feeling in the cinema of like we were watching something together. There's a particular scare in it that just was such fun. It's emblazoned on my memory. I just thought it all came together so well. And I know that this is topping a lot of lists for other people as well. So yeah, there are some people that don't like it. I've got a close friend who really didn't like it. And I get it. There are some good reasons. There's some like potential some plot holes and things here and there that he didn't like, but I really loved it. I thought it was just so entertaining. I loved the structure of it and how it played out. It's one that I would probably be able to watch over and over again with friends. It's kind of like the Substance of 2025. It's not quite up there. I think I gave this a 9. The Substance was a 10, but I loved it. And at Christmas, I normally try and make my mum and dad and my brother watch a lot of the films that I've seen here. And then Weapons is number 1 on my list to get that out. Right, so let's go back to the beginning of 2025. So I think the first horror movie I saw in the cinema was The Wolfman. And I went into this, ironically, because I hadn't seen Weapons, not as a big Julia Garner fan. I find her she always plays quite uptight characters, and I find her quite hard to like. That was absolutely the case in this. I thought she was a really wet and kind of unlikable character. But the worst thing, I mean, this was a Leigh Whannell. This was off the back of The Invisible Man from 2020, which I think we all agree was a pretty damn good remake of an IP, but doing something completely different. And I get what they were trying to do here. They were sort of trying to make this Wolfman thing more of a disease, more of a degenerative thing. I just thought it fell really flat. I didn't believe any of the character relationships. There was a lot of weird lack of logic. I didn't believe Jennifer Garner for 1 minute as the wife, and I thought the daughter they just didn't react in a kind of normal human way to what was happening to her dad. So I'm trying to think where I put it now. I might go back to my score. I think I put this in the meh. I do think it was probably more interesting than these ones here. Oh, where are we going to next? We're going to The Rule of Jenny Penn. The Rule of Jenny Penn, absolutely solid horror for me. I love this film. It almost could be one and done because it's one of those films that I don't know if I actually would want to watch it again because it actually made me physically uncomfortable. It's one of those, real life is the worst horror type theme. So it's set in a care home, and it's all about what goes on in the care home when the staff aren't necessarily looking out of the dynamics and the power dynamics that you wouldn't expect to see in that kind of setting. It's really disturbing, really uncomfortable, really maybe not want to get old. So as I get older, they're probably going to want to see that a lot less. But I thought it was really good. It really got under my skin, and I would absolutely recommend it. Right, Bloody Axe Wound. Okay, here we go. Worst of the year. Absolutely, that's thoroughly going in there. I just thought this movie was just trash. I get it. It had a very nice little LGBT angle, but the concept of this film was exhausting. It has this setup where there's a video shop, and there's a guy who runs the video shop, and he kills people in the town, and then rents the videos out. But they're well-produced films. They're not like snuff movies. And the town mourns the people that die, but also rents the films out. And the guy isn't arrested, and he's trying to teach his daughter. This is the concept of the film. It just doesn't have any internal logic. I found it quite obnoxious. It tried to be funny. It tried to do lots of things. And there's a bit of begrudging respect that they tried to come up with a concept, but they really needed to workshop it for a few more hours to make it have any kind of internal logic, because nothing in the film made any sense, and therefore watching it was quite a slog, because real life doesn't work like that, and it wasn't weird and out there and funny enough to warrant the kind of lack of logic. It didn't work on either side. So that is absolutely in worst of the year. And the next one is going to be very controversial. And what I've done for this list is I've done a bit of a variance on how out of step I am with critics and how I am out of step with audiences. And I think The Monkey might be one of the ones almost on both counts. This film is really divisive, and I think there are plenty of people that have put it on their list for one of their top. I absolutely hated it, and I'm going to put it slightly better than Bloody Axe Wound, but I really, really hated this film. I thought the sense of humour in it was beyond obnoxious. It just is not my kind of thing. There's something about Osgood Perkins that just doesn't work for me, and I've really tried. I don't think I've enjoyed any of his films. He's just not my director. I haven't bothered to see Keeper. I didn't go and review it because I just didn't want to. I really hated this film. I came out of it thinking it was so witless and so stupid, visibly angry. You can go and check out my review for more detail on it. But I do take the point that a lot of people seem to really love it. My cinema, no one was laughing. No one seemed to be into it. I think there was one guy at the front that seemed to be kind of getting on board. I don't know if it's like a British thing. I just thought the sense of humour was so stupid. None of the characters acted like people. The characters were all horrible people. They were all just terrible. There's this whole sequence with Elijah Wood, which people said was the funniest bit in it. And I'm like, I just thought that was like the peak of just how odd and how the characters spoke to each other in this just weird way. I just thought it was a mean-spirited, crappy film. And all the comparisons to Final Destination, I'm like, no, it had nothing. It was nothing like Final Destination, because the accidents and the deaths in that are clever and they are built up over, maybe 5-10 minutes. These were all cheap, quick, unrealistic. Anyway, I'm getting ranty again. I didn't like it. It's going in one of my worst of the year. Begonia. I am going to put Begonia in solid horror. It's a weird one though, because people might debate that it's not really horror. It was almost a one and done for me because, again, it's not necessarily a comfortable watch. Like, it can be quite intense, but I'd quite like to watch it again. It has quite a good twist ending, and I wouldn't mind going back to it just to kind of see how it feels, knowing kind of what I know about the ending. So yeah, it was good. Good Emma Stone performance, really cool concept. I like, again, Yorgos, he just does something that most filmmakers don't do. I can't really talk about it too much with spoilers. Oof, and then I'm going to go to next to The Long Walk. I'm going to stick this in modern classic. It's not Weapons, and I debated it, but the reaction this film gave me and the thought that, I still think about this film 3 months later when I saw it, it still gets me. It gives me a little lump in the throat now. When I saw it at the cinema, there was a guy next to me who turned to me and tried to almost like engage with me to see what I thought, because you could tell there was just an atmosphere, and I just couldn't talk because I knew that I was about to kind of like sob, essentially. And that's what I did. I went to my car and I don't know, it unlocked something in me. I just thought it was such a sad film. It was so shocking as well. And whether I was also slightly kind of like just shocked by it, and there was just lots of emotion in terms of seeing that film. I thought it was really well done. I think for the concept that it came up with in terms of it being about characters walking, like, it mixes it up and makes it interesting, but it's bloody heartbreaking. And just so nihilistic just watching it, but it is a really beautifully made film, a little bit too close to home in terms of how things are currently politically. Heart Eyes, that was a very early part of this year, and my overwhelming memory of Heart Eyes is that we absolutely loved it. It was such fun. I think I'm going to have to put it probably at the top of this list, and I know, again, that's going to probably piss some people off because some people really hated it. I thought for a rom-com horror, this was really, really enjoyable. I thought the sense of humour in it was pitch perfect. I loved the two leads. I was totally invested in them as characters, their relationship. It had really good kills. I thought the ending was pretty bloody awful, if I'm honest. The last 10 minutes and the actual explanation of what's happened was not good, but I forgive it. And actually, I would love to go back and watch it. I've only seen it once in the cinema, but we really, really enjoyed it. So, it might be I rewatch it and kind of have a bit of a reappraisal, but I just thought that was a really fun start to the year. It was just really kind of imaginative and did something new, but had enough of like a bit of wit and sense of humour behind it to do something cool. Oh God, Until Dawn. Oh, Until Dawn. I mean, it's absolutely going to go in the meh category. I think I probably enjoyed it more than the rest of these. Oh, I just thought that I just didn't enjoy it. I think I played the game. Obviously, it was nothing like the game, and that's fine. Like, I knew that going into it, it wasn't going to be like that. I just found the concept of the film quite hard to get on board with, because the conceit is these characters keep dying until they kind of figure out the key to stop dying. So therefore, there's no stakes, and you're just watching a load of people die over and over again until they figure it out. So there was no real like emotion to any of it. I also just thought that they were throwing everything at the kitchen sink essentially to make this interesting, and it didn't. We had like creepy dolls and witches and dark rooms and a guy in a hockey mask and someone hiding in a cupboard. It was just all the horror cliches in one movie, and I did not enjoy it that much. So yeah, I thought it was pretty meh, bog standard, didn't enjoy it at all. I don't know what this one is. What on earth is this film? Oh my God. Right. Okay. It took me a while to work out then what this one was. This is a film I saw in January. This is a film called Mom. And my God, was this meh. This was so boring. It was a. I reviewed this with Phil from Boys in Film, and that review is up. You can go and check it out. It's got Emily Hampshire from Schitt's Creek, who I love, but she's just not a horror actress. I want to see her doing comedy. I barely remember. I remember it being a late night watch. I remember it being a real slog to get through. And there's probably a way more nuanced critique of it, but it's not one I'd recommend. And it pretty much, I think, passed by every critic when that came out. Clown in the Cornfield. Another one. I do not get Clown in the Cornfield. I don't understand. Whenever I hear people talking about it, there's a lot of talk about how it subverts the genre and it has this amazing twist in the middle that completely changes what you think of it. And I've read the Wikipedia summary having seen it, and I'm like, what was the big twist and what was supposed to subvert expectations? Again, it had a fun LGBT angle in the middle, which was a bit out of nowhere. I really appreciate that. But this was really, really average. I don't understand why this is coming up again on top people's lists. Like, it was a really bog standard slasher. And I remember when it came out, a lot of the reviews were like, oh wow, this does something completely different. You'd expect it to be one thing and it's the other. I'm like, it's not. It's a bog standard slasher. Like, I don't understand it. There were like a couple of jokes in it that were good. There was one good joke about a phone, which you'll know if you've seen it what that joke is. But it's not a good film. And let me say, I mean, I'm probably going to throw this in around here, maybe between Restless and The Home. But I just didn't get it. Next up is Presence. This was one I managed to get a little screener of early in the year. I think this was probably one of the first horror movies I watched at home on streaming. Presence is an interesting one. I will throw this into solid horror, but I think the problem with this one was the marketing. And I think a lot of people went into this thinking it would be this really scary, like, haunted house movie. And the marketing kind of showed some of those key, like, scare elements that actually were a bit of a cheat. And I think if you knew going into this was more of a familial drama with a slight kind of paranormal angle to it, you may have enjoyed it more. I kind of went into it thinking it would be scary, and I actually enjoyed quite a lot what they ended up doing with it. I thought the way it was filmed was really interesting. I thought it was quite subtly done, and there were some quite moving elements to it. So I really enjoyed it, but I can understand why people who thought, well, I just think of that couple who might be at a cinema on a Friday night thinking, oh, there's a scary movie show and let's go and see it. And they get this. I get why that wouldn't be what people were expecting. I think it's kind of unfair to judge the movie on that, but it probably is their fault because of the way they marketed it. But I did actually quite enjoy it. In terms of things being horror adjacent, my next one is Dragonfly. And again, I think this is a bit like Begonia, a bit like Presence. Does it qualify as a horror? I think the last half an hour of this movie, it does kind of kick into gear. I really, really like this film. It's almost modern classic for me, and I'm debating it. I think, yeah, go on then, sod it. I thought this film was just so beautifully done. It's predominantly a film about relationships. It's a character study. It's Brenda Blethyn and Andrea Riseborough just kind of vibing with each other in this very kind of like dour domestic kind of situation. It's not a fun watch, but it's one that I saw. I think I watched it at midnight. I had to just get it watched for a review the next day. This was another one with Phil for Boys on Film. Thank you to him for getting me a screener of it. And I think I made my boyfriend and his mum watch it almost 2 or 3 days later because I really, really enjoyed it. Again, for the hardcore horror fans, I'm putting this on this list because in my view, it has a bit of a like horror kind of switch of direction at the end. If you go into it expecting a horror movie though, it's not. So I'll leave that with you. I just thought it was great, and I kind of want to put it there because I want more people to see it, and I thought it was pretty magical. Nosferatu, you'll have seen my review on this. It's good, like it's solid. It's just not for me. I'm not a big gothic horror person. I don't know if it's a film I'd want to go and watch again, but it was very well produced. It looked amazing, and it had good performances and all that stuff. It's just not for me. And I'm not going to mark it down on that respect because I know that it was, a very well put together movie. From a personal perspective, it's probably a one and done because I'm not going to go back and rewatch this. But in the right setting, it is a very cozy little wintry film with lots of icy breath and like open fireplaces. So there's lots to like about it. We're still going, still going, still going. Next up is 825 Forest Road, and this is a funny one. I just put this on. I think I have a Shudder subscription, so sometimes you think, well, I'll watch an original just to see. I didn't hate it, and I looked at Letterboxd afterwards and I was like, oh, everyone thinks this is really crap. It was all right, it was okay. Like, I'm going to kind of put it between Bone Lake and Conjuring First Rites. I thought it was way more interesting. Whether it was the actresses, I quite liked the characters in it, and I thought it had some quite effective scares. Like, it's very B-movie. This is the sort of thing you would see in a blockbuster in the 90s and be like, oh, like there's nothing else. Like, all the big movies have been rented out. I'll go and watch this. And you'd be perfectly entertained. You'd take it back to Blockbuster and you would never think about it again. But I didn't hate it. I thought it had quite an interesting setup, and it was a bit spooky, and it had a good little bunch of scares. So that's where it's going to go, and you can tell me what you think about that. Next up is Companion. Now, Companion, when I talked about films that I am going to be making my parents watch, this is absolutely on the list. This was probably, I would go above Heart Eyes. It's a solid horror for me. I really, really enjoyed it. I'm annoyed with myself that I knew the twist, and I'm not going to say what the twist is, because when I took Chris to this is like Weapons, one where I took him to see it. This was one where I think him not knowing the twist was just such a fun watch. It was a fun reveal to see his face when he kind of reacted to it. It was just a really, really fun movie, like really light, not particularly like heavy on themes, but it just had fun, and it was a movie that you could just stick on and say, I went and saw it twice. I'm really looking forward to watching it again. I thought Sophie Thatcher was pretty damn good in this, actually. Overall, really fun cast, and one of those movies that just breezes by in like 90 minutes and was just an interesting one. Another controversial one, and another one, if we're talking about the monkey being divisive, this is divisive on the other end for me, because I bloody love 28 Years Later. I am probably going to put it as my second favourite, and I think my review is on my channel on this one. I'm definitely at that point. I've been at that point now where I'm really sick of reboots and reimaginings and callbacks and silly little quippy lines from franchise movies where we have to honour the original. And I'm like, no, don't honour the original. Do something else. Do something completely new. Don't reference the originals at all. And I thought this film was so brave in what it did. I think it didn't remotely just go and follow a formula of let's do a zombie movie. It just did its own thing. It was absolutely unapologetic. I thought the structure of the film was really cool and odd. I absolutely bawled at the end. This and The Long Walk really, really kind of drained me of tears this year. They really, really kind of got to me. And I thought it was really well shot. I mean, there's a few sequences in this. There's a few sequences in this that are just so beautifully done. There's one on the causeway over to Holy Island, which was probably one of my favourite kind of set pieces in cinema this year. So I loved it. I'm looking forward to the rest of the franchise. I get it. I get why people didn't like it. I get why people thought the ending was all over the place. I think if you're American as well, or at least not British, that ending is probably going to be even weirder. I think we as Brits know what those characters are supposed to be without too much detail. And I also think if that whole sequence had been at the end of the credits and not at the end of the film, that film probably would have got like 10% better reviews than it did, because I think people just didn't like the kind of the 180 that it did. But I thought it was great. I think it was deep and meaningful. It had a lot of heart to it, and it just did something completely different. So fuck you, fan service. Like, screw the fans who just want the same old stuff. We're not doing that anymore. We're going to be doing something different. Oh, Push. Push is fun. So I don't know whether I was in a bad mood at the time I saw this. I think this might be the worst of the year for me. So this is a film about a pregnant woman who's a real estate agent trying to sell a house, and by all these different various methods, because obviously it's the 80s or maybe the 70s, whatever it was. Basically, there's a conceit that her car's broken down and there's no mobile phones because they don't have them.
it's one of those films that just deploys every single lazy horror cliche. You know, there's at least 2 scenes of the killer walking really slowly towards the woman as she tries to open a door. And I'm like, we're really going to do this twice? We're really going to do that? And it just kept going. It was just ridiculous. It had no artistic merit. I thought the guys who did it had done some other stuff that was pretty good. And yeah, it was fine. So Together is an interesting one. I'm really on the fence of Together. I am going to put it in solid horror. I did enjoy it. I have seen it since, and it backed up how I felt about it, which was that it's fine. And it almost goes in one and done. I think it's more rewatchable to me than Nosferatu, hence why it sort of goes here. But I watched it with some friends about a month ago, and at the end I just said, it's okay, right? Like, it's good, but it's not amazing. And they were like, yeah, it's fine. Like, the performances are really good. Like, Alison Brie and Dave Franco, a real life couple, lots of body horror. I think maybe if The Substance hadn't been released last year, this would have probably got a better reception for me, but it just did things that have been done better. And I just thought it kind of is what it is. Like, I don't know, it kind of wrapped up pretty quickly. There's lots to like about it. It's really fun and entertaining, but I thought it kind of fell apart a little bit in the last 20 minutes. And I don't know, I just wanted it to be a lot better than it was. It was one of the ones that I really thought, this is going to be phenomenal. This is going to be one of the... Next up, we have Shelby Oaks, and this is an interesting one. I think there was definitely a sense that the horror community, especially on YouTube, was quite favourable or maybe slightly biased. Like, I get that. I definitely heard some reviews where I just thought I just don't quite agree with it. And I think there was also a sense of, wow, this guy's got some money together, and that's a real achievement to make a film. And I completely agree with that. I think obviously it's an achievement to make a movie, but it still needs to be good. And I don't know that Chris Stuckman's any different from any other director. Like, there's plenty of amateur directors who bang out a film that isn't that great. So for me, I don't know. I just didn't think it was that great, and it's definitely going to live in that meh category for me. I think there were elements to it that were pretty good. I think Chris has definitely got a bit of a talent for, setting up a shot and some of the visuals. I liked some of the kind of like storytelling elements, the way it went from kind of different like styles of horror and that kind of thing. But ultimately, I don't know. I just think he probably needs to not maybe be a writer. Maybe it'd be good to see him do something else that, that I think he could direct something that, if there's a better script out there. I'm surprised that this is the film that he was desperate to make, if that makes sense. Like, if this is the first film where you write a script to think, I want to commit this to a film, then I don't really get why it'd be Shelby Oaks. I just thought there was a lot. It was kind of average. And I think actually a lot of the storytelling for a film critic was really weird. It was quite cliched at times, and there were quite a lot of massive glaring plot holes that I only really started to think about, after I'd seen it. So I don't know. I look forward to seeing what he does next, but I don't think it was a good film. Next we go to Dead Male. Dead Male, I actually pretty enjoyed Dead Male. Actually, I think it was a Shudder original that I kind of put off seeing for a few months, and I actually ended up watching it. I think I'm kind of in the middle of the summer, going into it thinking it was going to be quite boring. And I had a bit of feedback that it actually wasn't that great, but I was kind of in that mode of like, I want to kind of see where things go. So for me, this fits into that solid horror category, and I don't know. I think people will be quite surprised with that, and that's fine. I get it. I really liked I think the 80s aesthetic has definitely been done, but I thought this movie did it really well. It looked like it was from the 80s. It had a real grimy feel to it. It's a really interesting plot. It's about this kind of weird synthesizer enthusiast, which is quite original. I felt it was quite suspenseful and quite good. Freewhacker is another film that I saw back at the earlier part of the year. Actually, is one that I don't remember that much about it, if I'm honest. As I remember, it's an Irish sort of folk horror, and for me, it kind of falls into that one and done category. I do think that it could do with a rewatch, and I wouldn't mind seeing again. I'm not maybe that fussed, but as I remember, it was quite atmospheric. It was quite slow. Took a while to get going. I'm not sure if I completely understood really what was happening at all points, but yeah, there were enjoyable elements to it. Then we moved to Megan 2.0. So this is a bit of a nostalgic one for me. Megan was my first review when I started this channel 3 years ago, and I really liked it. I didn't go and see Megan 2.0 in the cinema because I'd heard it was a bit of a sci-fi sort of swerve on the original, and I put it off, and I think I saw that again kind of late in the summer. And yeah, I'm gonna be honest, it wasn't great, was it? I think it had some fun moments, but broadly, I feel like the character kind of ran its course. I thought the film was way too long. I mean, a film like that has no business being kind of 90 minutes long. No, sorry, it was 2 hours long. It should have been around 90 minutes, if not less. And yeah, for me, it really fell into that sort of meh category. I thought he probably enjoyed it a little bit more than Until Dawn, but I found that quite hard to get through. And yeah, we'll see what happens next. Charlotte is a bit of an interesting one because it's not a film I don't think many people will have seen. We actually were approached by Georgia, who made and acted and directed and did everything with this movie on a very, very low budget. And I say that with love, and that's not a read. I genuinely really liked this film. This is a film that came by with me and Phil from Boys on Film. So we've done a review and an interview with Georgia Conlon, the creator of that. And that was a really solid horror for me. I thought it had some really interesting moments, again, for something done so cheaply, and a really jaw-dropping, like almost like transformation scene that purely relies on Georgia Conlon's sort of physicality in the role. And it gets a bit like Dragonfly. I wanted to put it on the list really just to get more people to kind of know what it was and more people to see it, because I think, I think she's definitely one to watch. I really respect her and her partner for what they were able to create there. The Damned is a tricky one. That was another one I watched at the beginning of the year, and I think it was literally maybe the first film I watched, the first horror movie of 2025. Again, it's another one where I seem like there's been quite a few reviews. I found it quite dull. The fact I don't really remember much about it now. I think it was quite atmospheric, as I remember, but I found it quite a slog to get through. There were some visual moments that were quite good. It's quite a bleak film. The setting is really beautiful. I just didn't think much of it. It didn't really stick with me. And then likewise, the Man in the White Vine is a really weird film. It's almost quite innocent in many ways. It's like a movie that could have been done in the 50s, and it's like, a PG. There were a few moments here and there. I think the cast actually did a really good job here of making this maybe more than the sum of its parts. I think the main actress herself was pretty good actually, and made it quite watchable. So it is a one and done. I quite enjoyed the experience of it because it was so simple. It was so A plus B, but that's why that's going to live. We then move on to Grafted, and I feel like I'm being a bit flippant with some of these films, but this is another one that's sort of passed me by, and that's going to go into one and done as well. It's Japanese horror, which isn't, I'm not really a J-horror guy. I found it quite kind of maudlin and, just not all that fun to watch. One that was maybe a little bit more sort of colourful, but ultimately really not a great film, and one that I've seen a lot of people really down on is Fear Street Prom Queen. Not a massive fan of Fear Street. I've only seen the first one. I thought it was all right. I think it's not really for me. It's probably for like younger kids. It's that kind of like audience accessible horror. I will say for this one there were some really quite gory kills actually, but I just thought script wise, the 80s aesthetic was really lazily done. The costumes, the music was really obvious. I just didn't think there was a lot of kind of artistic merit to it. I don't really get what it was for because it just wasn't fun enough to be a popcorn horror. And yeah, I think a lot of people have kind of called this out as just being kind of bland and not really having much to it. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if, I don't think this is one where there'll be much variance from me. I think most people would agree this wasn't the best. And it's a shame, I understand that the rest of the Fear Street trilogy was all right. I've never seen the two follow-ups, which is the one in the sort of summer camp 80s one, and then one in the 1700s, but we'll go back to it. And then Dangerous Animals. This is a strange one because I've heard a few people in the review, in the wrap-up, say that this was underrated. I thought this was hugely overrated, actually. This came out, I think, in around late springtime. I do think it had a really good central performance by Jai Courtney. I think he was quite interesting as a character, but there were just way too many stupid decisions from characters. I thought, people could have got out of this situation in a much easier way. it was quite nasty, actually. I think the film, like, I know definitely like friends of me who didn't like it because they felt it was actually almost too much. But I thought it was a one and done. It's not one that I necessarily need to go back to again. But yeah, I thought there were some good kind of horror moments in it. Jai Courtney has definitely broken out of that sort of bland acting leading man thing that he got stuck in a few years back, and it was good to see him do something else. Strange Harvest. This is an odd one, this one. I mean, Strange Harvest is very true to its form. It's supposed to look like a Netflix documentary, and it does. I mean, it plays out like one. You know, it follows all those conventions, and therefore it's quite entertaining. I guess the problem is it's not real. So my view is I would rather just watch a Netflix documentary about a real case. This went a little bit cosmic at times, and it sort of then it brought me even more out of it because it then started to feel like not like a real life crime case at all. Something that had been made up, and I think there's so much darkness in the real world. There's so much content on Amazon and Netflix that looks like this, but I also think they sort of broke the fourth wall a bit by showing quite graphic images of victims, and I think within the first 5 minutes it was like, well, now it doesn't feel like a real documentary. It doesn't have that sense of a real Netflix thing that I could be watching that I would throw on and think, oh, maybe this happened. So yeah, ultimately, I don't know, where should I put this one? I think, yeah, it was one and done for me. I think, again, like the way that the format has made it kind of worth a watch, I think it was quite interesting. It's very much of our time, but it's not one that I would go back to. So yeah, let's leave that one there. Next up is Best Wishes to All. And it goes back to my thing about I do like horror films to be entertaining, and I just found this quite difficult to watch. And I know that there are definitely layers to this movie that maybe passed me by or I didn't appreciate. And that's kind of on me, I suppose. It's very well made. It looks good. It's got lots of really good horrifying imagery, and that kind of underlying message around, happiness kind of comes at the expense of others is quite interesting. Would I say, though, that this is a film that I enjoyed watching? Probably not, and that's a bit of a challenge, I guess, with a lot of horror films, is like the viewing experience of it maybe just wasn't worth it for me. And I found, again, this was quite a tough one to get through, as kind of, maybe we're hoping that would end. So it is a one and done, but I think that's definitely got a lot more artistic merit to it, and maybe worth checking out if that's your thing. It definitely wasn't bad. It just wasn't kind of my kind of film. So yeah. It's definitely up there. I'm seeing that in a lot of kind of like reviews and things. And actually, similarly with Bring Her Back, it's almost the same thing. I think Bring Her Back is a solid horror, and you'll see a lot of people talking about it as being their favourite of the year. I think it's the same thing for me. I think it definitely is a step up from Best Wishes to All. I liked the storyline of it. I thought the characters are interesting. Sally Hawkins is great and like completely genre defying in terms of the kind of film she's been in before. But my God, is this film bleak? It's just really hard to enjoy watching it. It's just not one almost is one and done on the basis that I don't think I'd ever want to go back to it. Probably similar to Bring Her Back, Bring Her Back to Talk to Me, which is by the Philippi brothers as well. Just not my thing. And that's okay. And I think, again, it is really solid horror, but I did think it also had a better ending somewhere that I don't think played out in what we got. But I'll put it up here in solid horror. I do think it was a good film, but I cannot ever imagine revisiting it. It was just, frankly, just too depressing. But, some really good gnarly gore, some really good performances. It's very well acted. And the Philippi brothers are great. I mean, they're ones to watch, and it just might not be that their films are particularly for me. But yeah, certainly worth checking out. Come on. Come on. Next up is, The Strangers Chapter 2. So I don't think it can be a big surprise to anyone. This movie and this series of movies, they are terrible. And I mean, it's the last film I think I reviewed for this channel. Maybe it may have just killed my enthusiasm for the rest of the year, because I just feel like Renny Harlin, is he trolling us at this point with these films? Did he get like halfway through making them and realise they were going to be terrible and then leaned into it? But it's absolutely, one of the worst of the year. I think it probably is arguably better than The Monkey, because The Monkey thought it was really good, whereas The Strangest Chapter 2 almost seems like he's given up at this point. Like, let's just get this thing out. I think they're releasing the third part in the early part of next year, and I really feel for Madeline Petch. I feel like she's carrying those movies, and they're giving her nothing. I mean, this has this whole very strange sequence in the middle of it where the film takes a completely different kind of turn. If you've seen it, you'll know what I mean. It's just a very odd, modern take on, is this how we make films now? We commit to making 3 films, all in the space of probably, I would say, about a month to 6 weeks to do these. And it's a gamble, because if it's bad, it will fall off, and it did. And my understanding is Strangest Chapter 2 did not do very well at the cinema. I think Strangest Chapter 3 will do even worse, and deservedly so. Next up is Above the Knee. This is a very curious little film. I can't imagine a lot of people would have seen this. It wasn't particularly mainstream. This again came via a film PR company who wanted us to have a look at a screener. That was with Phil from Boys on Film. So I've done a proper review of this. And this was an interesting one. I mean, it covers a very real psychological condition where people feel that they want to get rid of a perfectly well-working part of their body. And in this film, it is a leg. So anything above the knee they want to keep, they want to get rid of their lower leg and foot. And it becomes an obsession. And, it was interesting. I really started to look into the condition and realize that it is real. And, this isn't a condition that does affect people in many different ways. And, it can be lots of different kind of limbs and other bits and pieces of bodies. There's a woman in the film who wants to be blind, for example, and lives her life as a blind woman, even though she's got sight. So, in terms of the theme, it's interesting, but it's not a film I would want to go back to. I thought it was very interesting, lots to learn, but just the nature of it. Anyway, Screenboat. So I am not a fan of the IP movies. There's a lot of IP movies that are coming out. So we've had Bambi, Popeye, Winnie the Pooh a couple of times, and the Screenboat is kind of a horror parody of Steamboat Willie. And it's just, it's not great. If I'm being honest, I think the Terrifying movies, it's the same actor that plays Art the Clown in this. And I was kind of thinking, well, maybe it's going to have a similar kind of sort of sense of humour, and the kills will be sort of complemented. And I quite like the Terrifying movies. This was pretty trashy, to be honest. I thought the kills started to lose their impact. They were almost too kind of fantastical. And I don't really want to talk about it too much. I think it was the kind of film that you watch it once, and I felt like my life was ebbing away from me as I watched it. So I'm not going to go on about Screenboat too much, but it is not a good movie. Coyotes was one I was not aware of, so that came out as a screener. That was in an early October release, as I remember, and this was part of that really kind of flop era of cinema back in October, when I think it was the worst box office we've had in years, particularly for Halloween month. And for a horror movie in Halloween to come out and almost have no cultural impact, I thought it was, indicative of the quality of this film. It wasn't great. I think Justin Long kind of had to carry it a little bit to a certain extent. I feel like the sense of humor was, again, very American, very much like The Monkey, quite obnoxious. And it lives in that meh category for me. And the AI coyotes in that as well were just quite badly done. That obviously lent it quite a bit of bad will in terms of how people viewed it, because it took away that work of really good creatives to make something that just felt quite throwaway. And I just ended up not really caring about the characters and not really liking it all that much. And it's a shame, because it came out of nowhere. The trailer made it look like it might be a bit of fun. It could have had like a bit of like almost like a Piranha-esque like payoff to it, but it was too kind of like constrained in its own location and didn't do much with it. Final Destination Bloodlines is an interesting one. It's obviously going to go in solid horror. I loved it. I mean, it's a Final Destination movie. I'm so glad to see the franchise back. It was Tony Todd's last movie with his lovely monologue, and it had a great new cast. I love the sort of family angle. Just going to think about where I put it. But yeah, I thought the deaths and things were good, but I just thought the ending was a bit bad. Ugly Stepsister, I'm going to definitely put that up in solid horror. I kind of loved everything about it. I think it's a bit of a sleeper hit, appearing again on lots of people's lists in terms of like how gruesome it is, but how, I don't know, I feel like the main actress plays, about 6 different characters throughout the film, and she generates sympathy and disgust, and then you hate her for a part of it. It plays with this sort of Cinderella IP, but does it in such a better way than those kind of like expired IP Disney movies have done, or those, the Bambis and the Winnie the Poohs. So I wouldn't put it in the same category of those. It's actually just a bit more of a sinister fairy tale, told in a very different way, but it's got really good body horror, it's got food horror, it's got lots of really good dark themes. It's absolutely one of the best of the year, and I hope people don't avoid it too much. I think it's one of those subtitled movies that people might avoid it because they just think, well, I don't want to go through it. It doesn't actually matter. It's not a massively dialogue-heavy movie. But it's definitely one to watch. I've seen that on, again, lots of people's top lists of the year. And I really do hope more people go and see it. It really was one of our favourites and one of the ones that we watched this year. And then finally, Death of a Unicorn. And this has been in my recent catch up of the last year. That I didn't see this when it came out in cinemas. It didn't draw me in. The reviews weren't great, and it absolutely fits into that meh part of my ranking. I'm not a big General Ortega fan. I find her a bit one note. I just thought the whole film was just missed the mark for me in terms of humour and comedy, and just again not my kind of thing. I thought the CGI of the unicorns was absolutely terrible. It was almost like PS2 levels of graphics, like really, really amateur. And for a film of that quality, I feel like you'd have seen better effects probably in the 80s or 90s. And I don't know what they did, but So a bit of a weird note to end on. So those are my movies for 2025. Thank you so much for sticking with me. It's been a funny old year. And I think my average score was around 6 out of 10 for the year, if you actually look at my scores and then do an average across the board. So quite low, definitely not a sort of patch on 2024. I think, The Monkey was definitely one of those areas where the critics probably disagree with me the most. I think that's the biggest sort of variance. Again, I think it was quite divisive, but critics didn't dislike it as much as I did. And the I Know What You Did Last Summer remake, I didn't mind it, and critics absolutely hated it. And then from an audience variance perspective, so where did the audience disagree with me the most? They disagreed with me the most, and I'm not surprised by this on 28 years later. Again, that film I think it was well received critically. I think there were a lot of people just go into it expecting something different. I understand why. And I understand why, viewers liked it less than me, but I still think it's great. And on the other end, I think critics agree with me most on Screenboat. I thought it was trash. Most critics thought it was trash. Most audience thought it was pretty rubbish as well. So that's my ranking. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Scream at me for the ones you disagree with. I think next year I'm going to place a bit of a bet on it being better. I think there's some good stuff already on the horizon. And hopefully you'll be seeing more of me in 2026. Otherwise, have a great Christmas and New Year, and I'll see you in the new one.